positive growth after that bad experience. Positive change is closer than we think. Let's talk about it. Roll it. Welcome back to another video where we've been exploring this idea of change, growth, patience, and of course, we ourselves moving through time and experiencing all of this in either a positive or a negative way. Bad experiences are a dime a dozen. We go through them each and every day. The level of a bad experience is all based on our perception of what is occurring, and as such, we either deal with it as a bad experience that is very limited and it doesn't mean anything to us, or it's a big bad experience that really hits the soul, hits that heart, and it makes us defeated for a little bit of time. Not for a long time. In some cases, it's the perception again of what long is in this case. But eventually time ticks away and we move on. So how does this look? Well, if there's something that doesn't really bother us a lot, it doesn't mean a lot to us, it's based on the value system we have. And if it's very limited, well then, if it is a bad experience, then we just shake it off and dust ourselves off and off we go. But if it's something really big, well then we take time going through the emotions, and as we go through the emotions, well, we experience that bad moment over and over and over. And this is where time keeps ticking away and change has to occur, but a lot of the time we're stuck in that past and we feel like it's that present moment still, and we're still living it each and every day. If we're looking at tangibles, these two objects are for camera work. If this Joby breaks, I could buy another one, it's like $100. But if this breaks, well now I'm gonna feel in the pockets $1,000 minimum, and the value is a little bit different, so I'm more careful about this than I am with this. Now on the other side of things, the big bad experiences we have usually are caused by events that fundamentally change us in some way. Whether our businesses fail, or we lose our job in that career we always wanted, or when the relationship that we thought we were gonna be in forever and it fell apart. And let's not talk about toxic relationships because we'll talk about it tomorrow, but the idea is that we are expecting something and we get something else, and we get something that's negative, something that we did not want. And those are the big challenges that we have to deal with. In those moments, we start to go through the event and we play out the scenario over and over and over again. We create another negative moment chatter about that moment, and the narrative changes, and as that narrative changes, well, we add more to it, we loop back, and it just continues. Time starts ticking away, and the reality is that change is occurring, but we don't want that change to happen, and because of that, we go and experience all those emotions, we bottle them inside. As time goes on, we never really get over what occurred, and eventually life has to move on. You need to eat, you need to sleep, you need to move forward, you need to experience again, and naturally you need to be happy again on some level. This narrative changing plays a fundamental role in that idea of positive change, that idea of moving forward, the idea of getting back up on your feet and heading in that direction of that purpose you've set for yourself. And this is very, very, very seldom that we can, from a really big bad experience, that we can just go boop, whoop, and off we go again. We have to process everything, we have to internalize everything, we have to experience the emotions, and yes, sometimes it takes longer because of that negative chatter. Have you ever heard of those questions where, you know, your parents would have said, don't worry, when it's just a girl, it's just a boy, you'll find another person. Don't worry, time will play out the result. You will get your answer to that why question. You don't need to worry about the why. There was a reason for it. God had a plan, and you just have to have faith. I think we've all heard these. And the reality is, yes, there was a reason for it. If we're, looking at it from a perspective of why did my business fail? Why did my career not take off? Why did that person leave me? And we stick there and try to really figure it out on those critical key moments, and we keep playing them in a emotional state, well, we're never going to get the why. The reality is, in all those scenarios, there is a why. We see the why, we're just not accepting the why. We want to dig deeper. We need to find the reason that we will accept. And this is where people go, you need closure. You need to figure out closure. And yes, you do. You need closure. But what does that actually mean? When something bad occurs and you have that bad experience, what does that closure actually mean? Is it the reality of what occurred? Or is that justified reasoning you need in your mindset based on what you think should have happened, and then you got this other thing happening? So how do we move forward in a positive manner where we'll see positive change and life will get moving a little bit quicker than it would have? Well, one, it's accepting reality. That present moment is gone. It happened. You had that bad experience and it's now over. This is the first step, acceptance of the reality. Not the negative chatter you've put in your head and you've gone and replayed the story over and over, adding bits and pieces into it. It's what happened at that moment. Number two is write it down. Write everything down. Write it like a journal. Write it in point form. Write it. Just take a pen and paper out and write it. Write what happened based on that reality you're living right then and there. Write everything down and leave it for just a little bit. Walk away from it and then come back and read it. What you'll find is that in that short amount of time, your mind started replaying everything, and now it's a little bit different. And why is it a little bit different? Because this is what our mind will do. We'll repeat a story that we experienced, and because we're repeating it, we're adding those little bits and details that we originally, because we were in emotional state, we missed that, and write those new details down and really just leave it now and accept that is what occurred. Do not allow it to go 3, 4, 5 weeks down the road and then start writing down that story. Because a fundamental thing occurs during this process of time ticking away and you not wanting to accept the change that just occurred. And that is that our mind will continue to make new stories with that negative chatter. And how does this story play out? Well, let me tell you what occurs when you get that speeding ticket. You want to go fight it, and when you go into court and you try to present your case, the cop goes first, and the cop will be like, boy, I caught him speeding at this, and this is this, and this happened, and this is how it went. Here are my notes. You can have them. I just read them. You can now review them. And then you go up and you go, well, this is what actually happened. And as you talk and you finish your story, the prosecutor jumps up and goes, so you are telling us that the police officer's notes compared to your memory are not as accurate. That's simple. Your memory is not that accurate, and those notes are, because we've written them down at game time. We've played that scenario and they know this is happening. So on a learning note, make sure you write everything down that day if you ever get stuck in a situation where you had a car accident or you got pulled over, because you need to have it fresh, what happened, not things you created down the road. And when you're in court, this will help you win. So after you go through the step of acceptance of that reality, you write it down, you review it, and then you write down again anything extra and you leave it there. Well, let's look at the learning notes. What actually happened during that bad experience? Every bad experience has learning moments. Whether it was you losing your business, you starting a business and it not launching, whether it was your career and you moving up the ranks and then all of a sudden you stopped, or whether you lost that job and you got fired, or you had that bad experience with family members, with the friends, and then your significant other. What were the bad experiences? How did they flow? What actually happened and what was the end result? Writing these things down in a momentary thought process, a sequence of events, leading up to that will help you gauge what were you doing and what maybe you should have done. Your mind will start looking at it from a positive idea instead of that negative idea. For instance, if you were in a bad relationship, if you were in that relationship that you gave it your all, but all of a sudden, they still broke up with you, there must have been key moments that caused that breakup. There must have been key things that occurred in sequence of events where the level of attraction dropped and eventually that person just didn't want the relationship with you anymore. What were those? What were you doing that really made the relationship work at the beginning, and what changed through the relationship where it made it break? Because I always get people going to me, well, I've changed my ways, I've done everything, I'm doing everything right, stuff that I think I should be doing, and the reality is they're trying too hard to impress. They start doing right things, but as time goes on through the relationship, well, the relationship starts to go downwards because we stop doing those things that the attraction level was high for, and now the attraction level drops, and all of a sudden that relationship doesn't continue. Now, as we go through this process and we address these learning moments, it's very easy to really sit there and lose focus. And this focus is that growth has to occur. All of this stuff is bringing growth. It's addressing the fact that you did some fundamental things right, some fundamental things wrong. Now we can take those and start showing ourselves the opportunities that exist with the learning moments we're getting. This is where growth is happening, because that change will happen, like it or not. Time will keep ticking forward. Are you not going to go try another business because you failed on one business? Are you not going to go get another job because you didn't get that one job, or you failed at getting a job, or you failed at whatever job you were at and they fired you? Do you not need to eat? And then relationships. Are you just going to give up and never date again? You're just going to accept that you're going to be single forever because you keep screwing it up? Everything is practice. Everything is movement forward. Practice makes perfect. The society has trained us to be in this winning. We're all winners, but we're not. We're not all winners. There's winners and losers for a reason. If it was all winning, then every company would make money. Every relationship would be great. Every job you have would be 1,000,000% better than they are. Like, it's just simple economics. But the learning moments in failure are critical. Those learning moments and the mistakes, those bad experiences, this is the critical aspect that we need to really focus on. Because once we do this, we can start looking at what is that purpose we're seeking, and start looking at what we need to do in order to hit our goals to get to that purpose. And yes, I sound like a broken record, but this is the reality. You can really put all the pieces together and start establishing proper habits that will get you moving in the right direction. This is just a sequence of steps that we need to make sure we are following and we're growing and we're finding that movement, that momentum that we need to get moving in the right direction. And the last thing I'm going to say about this right now, before I make another video, because I just had some ideas pop in, but every bad experience, yes, it does get better. Time does move forward. If we work on these this way so that we can look for positive change, it will only happen if we accept that happened, that bad experience was there, and change has to happen now, and growth had to be somewhere in there based on the mistakes we made, based on those errors. And now growth takes over. We start implementing so that we can find success, find that happiness again. And it will happen a lot quicker if you implement this each time you have some failure, or say relationships, it works the best, because if you do this for every relationship, well, what you'll find is every time you get into another relationship, it's going to be that much better. Again, we're only responsible for what we do. So you are trying to be the best you can be. The other person has to come the other halfway to meet you there. But then again, you'll start making the right decisions at the right time because you're following this motion forward. Integrity will start to grow. Your principles will be aligned with your values, and voila, eventually you will have less bad experiences, more good experiences, and life will be happier than ever before. My name is Nikos Rentas. This is mentorsapproach.com. Hit a like if you like what you see. Of course, hit the subscribe button and ring the bell so you don't miss those daily motivational ideas that will get your mind moving in the right direction. And if you've been in your own story of a bad experience and you had a different way, because of course this is one of the many ways you can start moving forward, leave a comment below with that story, because who knows, somebody might be reading it and it might help change a life. Snow again.